What's good, people? It's your boy Vish for Life, back at it with more Madden NFL 21 news. I'm making this video fresh off the heels of the Madden 21 stream that just went off, discussing the beta feedback and changes that have been implemented because of that feedback. I have right here the gridiron notes from the stream. I will have that link below in the description so you can check it out. But let's just dive right into it because there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. Starting right off, Celebration Run has now been changed to just left trigger or L2. Rather you using the left trigger, right trigger, and A, they've basically put it all down to just using one button. I like the change only because I like the taunt and it's easy to taunt with just one. You know, it used to be just one button and they changed it, and I want to say what, like 3 Maddens ago maybe. So coming back home to this, dope. Because of that, we go right into the second bullet point. There's no precision modifier. The precision modifier is gone because now, in order to have those steerable moves, is based on your ratings and your attributes that go for those ratings. So like if you're over a certain number in juking, you'll now have a steerable animation rather than having to use the left trigger to use it. I rarely use LT moves in Madden 20. Don't think I saw a lot of people, even pros, use them in 20 as well, so not really a hard loss. Pre-play defensive adjustment updates. They've added a new DB lock-on mechanic. That's going to be now hitting with the LB or L1 button. Basically in Madden 20, that's what you would use to bring up your pre-play. Now it's going to be switched to the RB R1. A little bit of a change to get used to, but not very dramatic. You just have to kind of remember, like, okay, R1 now instead of L1. Onto the DB lock-on mechanic. When you hold L1, what it does is actually take your user control player and it puts them into a man coverage behavior on that specific receiver. Not really sure. I guess this is like replacing the whole if you held down that button, the computer will control you while you're locked on. But this now makes it so since you're in man coverage, it will lock onto receiver, but you are susceptible to wide receiver cuts or moves, and you have a timing window to basically react to them before you get burnt. Once again, it's not something I kind of see myself using that much, but maybe there's a fine art to it, or because of the player movement not being as quick, maybe this is a good way to maybe, I guess, stay with the receiver before they make a big cut. I have to kind of mess around with them more, but that's what DB lock-on mechanic is. Let me know if you think that's going to be something useful. You know, leave the comments in the bottom. One of the big meaty things is the ball carrier archetype run style. So basically, based on your height, your weight, and your agility rating, you'll unlock different run styles, and you'll see this play onto the field. For example, you have agile, which is where you can turn and change direction faster, smoother, and you have the quickest special moves. This applies to skill players with 80 agility or above and under 225 pounds, so your Christian McCaffreys. Going into the next tier, you have agile small, where it's similar to agile but with shorter, quicker side length. Applies to agile skill players who are 5'10 or below, like Tyreek Hill. Then you have your agile tall, where they're basically similar to agile but with longer tall stride length. They apply to an agile skill position players who are 6'2 or taller, like Julio Jones. Just going off those 3 things, that's kind of dope to see. All those 3 players are, you know, all good, but they're all uniquely different. And if you're telling me now I can basically see the difference between how a Christian McCaffrey moves and how a Tyreek Hill moves compared to a Julio Jones, that's a big W for everybody. I think with Madden, we're so used to seeing the same running styles, the same run animation. The only thing we really pay attention to is the speed part, right? So if you're telling me that we can now actually see it translate on the field from the special moves they do and how they run, that's a big win. Going into the last ones, you have the bruiser, which is the slower rate of turning, takes longer to change direction, slower elusive special moves than agile players, but more powerful power moves apply to the skill position. Linemen with less than 80 agility and over 225 pounds. Example, CJ Anderson. Such a wonderful example to use CJ Anderson. Couldn't really think of anyone else, but I guess CJ Anderson, who I don't even think he's playing this season. But then again, who is? Opt out, right? Then you have Bruiser Quick, which is similar to Bruiser but with custom animation for bigger players who have quick feet. Applies to Bruiser skill positions and linemen with a speed rating of 90 or above, like your Derrick Henry. So this is basically saying that Derrick Henry will make sure to won't have the biggest change of direction, but will have explosive trucks and stiff arms to get through the competition, which if you watch Derrick Henry. That's exactly what he does. And then you have the bruiser heavy, which is similar to bruiser with custom animation for bigger players who don't typically carry the ball, such as offensive and defensive linemen. Applies to any bruiser who is 290 pounds or heavier. So these are just like the big guys who don't really do much on offense. And in some cases, like you said, the big D line, like the DTs, where they're just going to be running real slow, but you'll see it. You'll know when you're running with a DT compared to when you're running with a wide receiver. Like, you'll feel that slowness and that bulk. So that seems realistic. Anything that helps realistic, methods towards keeping that realism is always a plus for me. Now we get into the most upvoted feedback. So to give you some context here, Madden's beta had a form where you can basically leave feedback, and then if people liked it, they could upvote it. The upvote basically brings it up so that more people can see it. If you had a lot of upvotes, that means a lot of people agree with you. If you didn't have a lot of upvotes, then that means you probably didn't have something that people agree with. Anyways, one of the most polarizing topics of Madden 21, and I talked about this in my beta feedback videos, was the user on defense feels slow and sluggish. Now, this feedback was consistent, but it's also very polarizing. The speed at which defenders change of direction will be largely unchanged because the vision for gameplay balance is focused more on authentic player movements and strategic decisions. While we are investigating to ensure there are no bugs in player movement that could be having unintended consequences, the intent of this system is to reduce the area of the field a single defensive player can cover based on the ratings, direction change, and encourage coverage defenders to make choices about what routes they want to take away. As player ratings increase, the amount of ground a player can cover will also increase. I don't like that last sentence, but that's kind of like most people who are making those like plays back in Madden 20 aren't using like the highest rate defenders, so I'm not gonna fret on it too much. Anyways, this is a big W for Madden 21. The reason why is in the beta, it really felt like you had the ability to actually throw more routes, because now you don't have to worry about this user coming from somewhere on the field to pick it off. Now, the only thing that I hope is that if I'm a user on defense and I, from the get-go, say I'm going right, just right trigger it down, I get to them. I don't want it to be where even though I know it's coming and I commit to it from the end of play, I can't get there. But I am all right with accepting the fact that I can't cover this mid route that came up, this drag that just came up, and this slant that's coming. I have to pick one and live with it. That's what it's like in the real NFL, and that's what the Madden is trying to base itself off of. In 20, it was very easy to just take one area of the field and just take away all these routes. This way, you can't do that. And I'll give you an example. I have a video I'm about to post where I was the DT. I think I was Andrew Billings. And not only did I start in the DT position, but I was able to back up and run past the line of scrimmage to break up a drag. Now, I don't know who Andrew Billings is, but I can tell you he's not that quick. He shouldn't be able to get back there and break up a drag. This movement system is to make plays like that no longer happen. To where if someone gets a route on you that you weren't there to cover, you just got beat and you have to live with it. You don't get that super, speed up, jump up, get a pick out of nowhere. In Madden 20, you had the ability to throw the ball over the user's head. This is now going to make it be where if the user's beat, they just won't be able to catch up. And I think that's such a great feature. Now, there's going to be caveats that you have to remember with this. If you're throwing the ball deep, and the user controls the safety, if the safety's in that area, they can get to it. That's not going to prevent them from being able to do that. What this is going to do is prevent those mid-level or low-level reads to actually work. Now I can try and get me a successful middle of the field out and not have to worry that some user is going to be looking at that dragged and come back up and defend that. So that's where the big change comes from. I think this is going to be overall good for Madden. I know there's a lot of people complaining, even some pros, about it, but I'm glad they held their ground because this needs to be something that's implemented and put into Madden going forward. Now, on to the next thing, the change back to the hurdle/truck. What they essentially did during the beta is they experimented with having hurdle on the Y button if you're playing Xbox or the triangle button if you're playing PS4. Reverse that around. They experimented with having the hurdle be actually right stick up on both those consoles, and then Y or triangle would be your trucking, whether you're using the PS4 or the Xbox. I actually kind of grew to like it as the beta went on, but I won't lie to you, my instinct was always to use the right stick up. So while I was okay with the change and would have gotten over eventually, I'm not actually too mad at them switching it back because I can understand how that's something that's harder to do or get used to. One thing because of that is they want to do a lot more combo moves, so they had to kind of change up how it works with that change. One of them is that the hurdle, since it's going back to the Y/triangle button, you can now only do a juke hurdle combo. So if you hurdle up into the air using the Y button, you can now only juke out of it. So you have to move either the stick left or right, and that will dictate where you're going, but you can't do any other combo moves out of it. This kind of also comes up with trucking. Now that you have the trucking back up on the right stick, you can only now do a spin out of it. So if you truck someone, you can't juke afterwards, you have to spin afterwards. And the spin has to be done by rotating the stick in either direction. A lot of people actually suggested having custom controller mappings. I thought that would be a dope idea, but that's something that they're looking into, but they probably won't be able to get to this year. But all in all, I think once you go into practice mode and just kind of get used to the comboing, it'll be a pretty decent change. A big common complaint during the beta was that players weren't reacting when the ball was thrown, both on offense and defense. These were actually basically bugs in the catching system, and what they've pretty much done is they've improved it since the beta, and they believe that during launch it's going to be a very noticeable improvement, but they're going to monitor it to see if anything needs to be done. So obviously if you're playing Madden, you see a lot of situations where people aren't really reacting to the ball or catching anything, let it be known through Twitter or however you give it feedback, and they'll try and get and see what the cause is. Now, as someone who played the beta quite a lot, I would say, one thing that I did feel was the zone coverage wasn't very effective, and that seems to be something that a lot of people also felt, so they made some improvements. Here's what you can basically expect. They improved reaction times relative to breaking on the ball, which scales per defender zone rating or man coverage rating in match zones. They added logic to modify break on the ball reactions based on the face and direction of the defender, meaning if he can clearly see the throw, he will break faster than when he cannot see the throw, which makes a lot of sense. But sometimes in Madden, you literally have zone players who, looking right at the play, still didn't do anything until the player caught the ball. So hopefully we're going to be able to see more of those contested catches at the point with the players in zone who can see the quarterback, see who's getting the ball, come up to go get him. They improved zone behavior for defenders with zone coverage abilities. They fixed issues in cover 4 quarters and palms causing zone defenders to react too much to play action. Fixed logic problems with quarter flat zones inappropriately matching vertical routes. Fixed logic problems in cover 3 against halfback wheel routes. Improved underneath zone dropping logic, and cover 3 and cover 2 coverage will get updates later after the launch via title updates. So basically they're monitoring zones. The only thing I was really concerned with was during the beta, if you caught streaks against deep blue zones, it was really possible for the receiver to basically end up being wide open. Hopefully they caught that and that you won't see that as much or if at all, hopefully during Madden 21, but all these updates look good and they definitely show that they're listening to the feedback that came during the beta. Player switching logic doesn't feel intuitive. The beta has some changes to player switching logic that we wanted to get more testing and feedback on and attempt to make some improvements to downfield player switching. Based on that feedback, these changes have more unintended negative consequences than we like, so we removed those changes, so player switch logic will be the same as it was in Madden 20 for 21. I didn't really have any problem switching my player. I'm not really sure where this problem really arose, but it's nice to know that I guess it's gonna be back to what it was. The film study ability. So for those who don't know, during the Madden 21 beta, Earl Thomas had an ability to where if you ran the same play 4 times in a formation, you would get the ability on defense to see for that play the routes and the play art, and then you would still even see the audibles if they changed it. Very polarizing, very a big thing in the Madden community. I was I don't want to say indifferent, but I'm gonna go with indifferent to it. I've heard both the arguments for why it should be there, why it shouldn't be there. If you had to put me in a camp, I'm probably on the camp of I don't mind it being in there. But there's a lot of people who went real deep into their think space on how it would ruin Madden, and there's a lot of people who also went deep into the think space of how it would improve Madden. essentially, it's sort of a half win for everyone. It won't be in the game at launch, but they are going to keep balancing it and thinking about it, and they are going to put it back in later via a title update. So whether that's a win or a W for whatever side you're on, it's up to you. Me, I always feel like at the end of the day, the better player will find a way to win. Whether you have that ability or you don't, you'll find a way to win. If they get that ability to where it only works on that formation, and if you literally just change to a whole different formation and that stops it, I think that's a W. Now, once again, I'm not going to get too much in the deep thinking processes of it, because I feel like there's a lot of people who can give you the A's and the Nays. I know for a fact NFL players study. They see routes that teams run. Teams run those same routes, and they use it to latch on and jump things or take things away. That's common, that's undebatable, that's just a fact. How you put that into a video game, very tough. Don't know the exact answer, because I can see both sides. I don't want to be on the fence that ultimately I think it should be in the game, but it does give me great comfort knowing they are looking into it and they're thinking about it. There's some ex-competitive players on that Madden dev team, so hopefully they keep that player first logic in mind whenever they do make that change. Fatigue penalties for scrambling quarterbacks are too severe. So the feedback on scrambling QBs told us that countering scrambling quarterbacks felt difficult on defense, but also that the fatigue penalties to out-of-position ball carriers felt too punitive at times. Here's the improvements we made to balance this out. Decrease in fatigue penalty for simply running with an out-of-position ball carrier but not getting hit. So this means that if you're running with an out-of-position ball carrier, or you're running with your quarterback and you slide or you get out of bounds, you do get a decrease of fatigue, but it won't be as drastic as what it was. I'm okay with that. I think ideally the ultimate thing is to make it so you can't just go down the entire field with your quarterback and feel like basically, you don't have to do anything else. During the beta, using Lamar and him getting really tired to where I had to put in RG3, that was a different feeling that I don't think I've gotten in a while in Madden where you can see the fatigue matter that much. So I love that they did that change, and I understand why they had to decrease it, because it was much. I think if you ran like once, you were already in orange, and then if you ran again after that, you're pretty much coming into red or white territory. Now, one little snippet here is that it actually increased fatigue penalty when you take hits with out-of-position ball carrier, more significant when taking hit stick tackles. So that's something to definitely think about. If you're a quarterback now, you have to really slide, because if you take the hits, your fatigue penalty is going to go up. And even if you don't fumble, they're going to get tired more just because they took that hit, especially if it's a hit stick. So that's going to put you in a position now where the quarterback on the next play might be a lame duck, and you might have to switch him out, which could be devastating based on who your backup quarterback is. So I'm all right with this change. It definitely encourages people like the Taysom Hills and Tyreek Hills to where if you're gonna put them in there to get out of bounds and not take those hit sticks, and it's definitely encouraging me if I'm playing defense to know if I see someone who's an out of position ball player coming across the line of scrimmage, to definitely go for that hit stick and try and get them real tired. So I'm alright with the change. I like it. AI pass rush doesn't seem as effective as user pass rush. They basically slightly boosted the win probabilities of AI controlled pass rushes on simulation, All-Pro, competitive All-Pro, and competitive All-Madden, which will make higher rated pass rushers have a bit more impact when AI controlled. For context, this tuning, the stats from the beta showed an average of less than 1 defensive sack per game, while we are targeting closer to 2 per game. To balance this tuning, we've also added a lot of pass block double teams to fully utilize the blocker resistance system. That means that when rushing against double teams, any memory built up against the rusher to that point in the game will count towards the rush for both blockers and double team, making it hard to beat double teams. I'm just gonna say this right now. Big believer in pass rush being better in Madden. Big believer. I feel like a lot of people have a lot of time in the pocket. I know that I am a byproduct of that of that because I have more time in the pocket, but in the real NFL, you don't have that much time in the pocket. So anything where you're increasing that pass rush and making it so the quarterback has less time to get the ball off, I'm a big fan of. You know, that's how the elite teams separate themselves based on, do they have the pass rush, do they not have the pass rush. I guarantee you, if you're going against the Chiefs and you have Chris Jones and, you know, Frank Clark and I don't know who the other person's going to be now that, you know, Ogba's on the Dolphins. Shout out to the Dolphins. But you shouldn't have all that time, and you should be able to, you know, get hit. So I'm glad that they're doing that. I'm all for it. Boom. QBs can be stripped in the pocket without starting and throwing competitive. They basically received feedback that people thought it was unfair that you could strip the quarterback before they run, before they do a pass. So now what they did is they disabled strip QBs when they're inside the pocket. The only way you can get that now is if you have a strip specialist ability, and this change applies to competitive only across all difficulties. So I know Shaquille Barrett has a strip specialist ability, so he'll be able to do it. You know, I didn't really see the strip thing before, strip before you throw in the beta that much. So my response is okay, cool. You know, I guess you had to tone it back because people saw that a lot. You know, it is what it is, I guess. That's the best way of putting it. The pass max throw power passing feedback and penalty. When the throw power max is hit by a quarterback per his throw power rating, we have made a change so that a QB cannot be hit with both an accuracy penalty and a power penalty on the same throw, except on crossbody throws, as this was causing throws to be wildly off target and was confusing the players. We have also updated the passing feedback test to be clear for the specific passing penalty, so instead of it reading pass max throw power, it will now say out of range. This applies in trying to throw to a receiver who is further downfield than the QB's throw power rating. That explains a lot, because I know in the beta you would see the pass max throw power rating, and you would see, you know, some other throws or some, you know, other things where it make the throw look a little bit inaccurate. You didn't see it a lot. At least I don't feel like I've seen it a lot, but I see what they're trying to do here, where they're not trying to give you a double whammy to where you have this ridiculous throw that ends up nowhere near where you're targeting. So, you know, I'm okay with it. You know, if you get that, it should be a lame duck where the ball can't go to where the receiver is, making it easier to pick off or something happens. So as long as that's replicated, I have no problems with it. The top reported bugs from Madden NFL 21 closed beta: the rainbow colored arms / the pink arm equipment, the incorrect player pictures, buyers not positioning on helmets correctly, gamer tags cover the play clock when playing online, and coach adjustments reset after every drive, and coverage depth adjustments automatically sets to 0. If it's on here, that means they fixed it, which is good. The gamer tag covering the clock, I really didn't notice, but I would be like, wait, why is my time going down? I think it had another one where it would put you on conservative at random, so you would start that play with only 10 seconds on the play clock, which led to a lot of delayed games. So I'm hoping they fix that. It's not really here, but I'm assuming something like that's not going to slip through to where we are now. But anyway, I like the changes. I like where they're going with it. The big W here for me is that they're keeping the player movement style. You are going to be able to open up the passing play with more and throw more routes, because now you don't have to worry about user coming out of nowhere and getting a pick, even though they were nowhere near it. So big W for that one. I think you have to just get used to not being able to cover the whole field with the middle player. I think it's a worthwhile thing. Sorry, Madden's trying to get realistic. You know, the game that y'all love to talk about, 2K didn't let you do that. Madden's trying to get back, you know, start to go towards that level of realism. So that's dope to see. I'm just trying to leave any other things. I love the improved pass rush, big pass rush fan. Love the improved zone. Looking forward to seeing the run archetype types. But anyways, that'll pretty much do it for this video. Let me know in the comments below what you're looking forward to based on the feedback given here, and then what you expect or are most excited to see in Madden 21. Give me that like and subscribe if you haven't done already. Appreciate y'all rocking with me. Until next time, peace.